Hey guys, what's going on? Tyrauku here, and I hope you're all doing great. Today we got a video coming from the test server, Tyrauku test, almost 1 million gems, so pretty clear to see that this is a test server. I'm not quite that big of a whale. But looking at Tatura Rimehide, which I'm hoping to not mispronounce his name, Tatura Rimehide, for whatever reason, I keep wanting to add an N right after that A, but we're going to call him Tatura Rimehide like we're supposed to. But let me know where you plan on using this guy. I've seen a lot of content about him being used in Hydra, some content in him being used in, actually really Hydra is like the main thing. Hydra and some Doom Tower bosses, I guess maybe Bommel, but a few different Doom Tower bosses and mostly Hydra. But today I want to show you guys, so like if you're a mid-game player, if you're progressing through dungeons, this dude is going to be absolutely amazing, okay? Getting you from those stage 20s, I think even to 25, honestly just helping you progress in general. There's so many different ways that he's going to help you. And I think he's definitely a fusion you should go for, right? I like to go for majority of fusions that I can. Obviously, it depends on your resources plus the time allotment that you have, the time commitment. But if you can get him, go for him. I think if you miss him, you're going to be regretting it if you could have got him. But let's go ahead and look at his abilities real quick. And then I'm going to get into talking about his build. Obviously, he's in a taunting set right now plus a frostbite set. I can almost guarantee that you have not seen very many champions in a taunting set because honestly, the taunting set is not very popular. It's from Ice Golem, not super used, but I had a set laying around and I'll get into more of that in just a second. But his A1, attacks one enemy, 80% chance, bookable up to 100% chance of placing 50% decreased accuracy for 2 turns, A2 ability, block debuffs, and increased defense on all allies for 2 turns, 3-turn cooldown when booked, 5-turn when not booked. So definitely book this guy. At least get his A2 and his A3 booked. If you can get this one booked, if you're going for him to be used on Bommel or anything like that, you definitely want this ability as well. It's a big help, but honestly, the A2 and A3 are the most pertinent things for what we're going over today. Now, his A3, attacks all enemies, places perfect veil buff on all allies, except this champion for 2 turns. Also places a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns, equal to 20% of the damage inflicted. So a lot of people are reading this part right here and kind of building him in a similar sense to like Miscreated Monster, Sir Nick, champions like that who deal big damage and get big shield. Very viable build, but not quite what I'm going for today. I don't have 100% crit rate. If I could get it, perfect. If I could actually build him that way and it makes sense, perfect. But if you're not able to get that, don't worry whatsoever. He's an amazing tank and type protector type champion. His passive is super cool. And this idea of the taunting set was actually given to me by one of you guys in the comments. Sorry, I forgot your name, but if you're watching this video, definitely comment down below that it was you who recommended it, but it was the Frost set. They mentioned that I did a video a while back on Cantra in the Frost and Frostbite set, and they wanted me to test Tatura in the same thing to see how he performed. This ability right here is kind of, I guess, what gave him the idea, but when attacked, reflects 30% of the damage this champion receives back to the attacker. He's a defense-based champion. He's going to have a lot of defense, so he's not going to be taking a lot of damage, so this is going to be very small numbers. But his second part is also has a 30% chance of placing freeze debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. So basically the idea that the person who wrote the comment, like I said, sorry, I forgot who it was or where it even was commented at, but that coupled with a frost set plus a frostbite set, that would be such an incredibly high chance to place the freeze. Plus, if you picked up the Mastery Fearsome Presence, dude, you're going to be placing that freeze majority of the time, right? I don't know the exact math behind it. I don't know if it's multiplicative or additive or what. That'd be a high number, right? But I tested that out. And while it worked, the issue I kept finding though was with Tatura doing his A3 ability, he would keep placing perfect veil on everybody. And even with the Mastery Lasting Gifts to have the chance to extend that, sometimes it would cycle around and just be unfortunate luck and they would have no perfect veil. Ideally, if everybody's veiled except for Tatura and you're not in the Hydra boss, the Hydra boss for whatever reason decides who it wants to attack even if you're veiled. But other content, if everybody's veiled except for Tatura, everybody's going to attack Tatura, right? Well, the issue is depending on how he's tuned, like if he takes his turn and then somebody takes it directly after him, so they're going to have a 2 turn of perfect veil, well then they take their turn, boom, they instantly have a 1 turn of perfect veil before the enemy ever even attacks. So I was noticing that my allies would lose the perfect veil very quickly, and Tatura would lose the ability to be a tank very quickly as well. So instead, I wanted to opt for trying the taunting set, which honestly I turned out to be a pretty big fan of, okay? So the taunting set has a 30% chance to place provoke, and I'm able to pick up a 2-piece of the frostbite set. 15% chance to block freeze, and a 10% chance to place freeze debuff on an attacker. So really, we're getting the best of both worlds. A higher chance to place freeze coupled with that passive ability, plus this taunting, when he uses A3, which is an AoE ability, I have a chance of provoking several enemies, which even when that perfect veil wears off my allies, they'll still have to attack Tatura, and it gives me a better chance to get back around to this A3 ability to do another AoE, place perfect veil up again, and have a chance to provoke them once again. And it really helps me just lock down all the enemies. Once they attack from being provoked, they have a chance to freeze themselves. And it's just a really good continuous cycle that gives Tatura a chance to be an amazing tank for really anybody wherever you're at in the game. Now, granted, if you're far in the game, you may not even need a tank. You may just sear down all the waves, and it's not a big deal. But how am I building him, okay? So his HP, definitely, I want him to have good HP. He has a very solid base HP, so it's not super difficult to pick up and get a decent number there. Defense was also another big focus of mine. He's a defense-based champion. The higher defense really lends itself to being a better tank. So if I get to 4,000, perfect, but really 3,000, 3,500 plus is a good range to be in. Obviously, it depends on where you're at in the game, but his speed, you can either make him really fast, the fastest person in your team, ideally lapping around, keeping that perfect veil up on your allies, taking several turns, or you could even make him a bit slower so he'd be the last person to go before the enemies take their turn, placing that perfect veil on all your allies, giving them the longest chance. I went with a route of, he's kind of medium speed range, like he's not the fastest on my team, but he's definitely not the slowest either, and it seems to be working pretty well. Now his crit rate and crit damage, I'm not worried about those. I know you can definitely get his crit rate up, get a bigger shield. If you can build that into this build, perfect, but currently I don't have the gear with the taunting set plus frostbite to actually do that. His resist is set to resist the spiderlings in spider stage 24 and 25, and it seems to be doing pretty well so far. His accuracy is set to place debuffs from the, right here, this freeze, because the taunting set and the frostbite set doesn't require accuracy, but the freeze here does. So ideally, I have enough accuracy to place freeze on anybody who attacks me throughout dungeon content. His masteries, real quick overview, the most important ones in my opinion: Fearsome Presence gives me a higher chance of placing Provoke, higher chance to place Freeze from artifacts and his passive ability. Harvest Despair gives me a chance to place Leech whenever somebody gets frozen, which just allows me to heal even more throughout the battle. Also picked up Lasting Gifts, which is very, very good. Lasting Gifts gives me a chance to extend the duration of Perfect Veil, Shield, block debuffs, and increased defense. Basically, any buff that is not block damage, unkillable, revival, and death. So anything else can be extended. Also, I went ahead and grabbed Rapid Response, helps speed him up a little bit as those buffs are falling off the allies, all right? So let's go ahead and jump in here to see some content. And obviously, definitely, he's worth the books if you can invest him, if you have the books to do it. And he's definitely worth buying Masteries for as well. Let me jump in here to Dragon. I believe I did Dragon stage 25. Let's see what team is in here. A bunch of Spirit Champions. So this is probably it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and forewarn you guys, this is a fairly long run. So this run is by no means meant to be like a speed run. Honestly, this run I think took like 7 minutes. So I may just fast forward it to the Dragon in a few seconds, but I want to give you guys the idea of how good of a tank he is. So you can see here, we have two people provoked there, which is perfect, okay? As they start attacking Tatura, you're gonna start noticing more and more of them getting froze. The thing you gotta be very careful about though, is I tried Dragon Stage 24. The issue was if I didn't provoke the Spirit Host, she would just cleanse all the provokes and ruin my run. So if you're trying to progress through the dungeons, Dragon Stage 24 or anywhere with a cleanser on the enemy team, you want to make sure you can lock them down, lock them out, make sure you can provoke them, or just keep running it until you get lucky with RNG and then get to another stage where you can actually reliably farm. But as you can see here, Thane is squishy, Mordecai is squishy. Everybody here is pretty squishy, okay? Nobody here I really have built to have much sustain. I have Doom Priest just for some little extra heals. Thane is to do some poisons on the dragon when we actually get there. Mordecai is to do some burns, and honestly, I don't really know why else he's in here, to be quite frank. Stagnite, decreased attack, decreased defense, helps speed up this run a little bit as well. The burns are nice for the waves, I guess, but honestly, other than maybe a turn meter reduction. We'll just say turn meter reduction. That's why I put him in here, but honestly, he could be replaced with so many other people. And if you had Seer, if you had other big damage dealers for these waves, it'd work perfectly fine. This is mostly just a proof of concept. If you even had a Poisoner better than Thane, got to the boss, speed it up. If everybody else could even die, that'd be perfectly fine. But the main thing is here is proving how good of a tank Tatura is about sustaining even people who are pretty squishy, relatively, right? Like we don't have any Duchesses, no Siffies, nothing crazy. No Brogni shields here to protect everybody. Overall, fairly squishy team. So let me go ahead and I'll just fast forward to the end. We'll go ahead and see how much, if we've made it to the dragon and how everybody performed once we got there, okay? Actually, I may fast forward it to wave 2 so you can kind of see how that goes, and then to the dragon right afterwards. All right, guys, so we just now got to wave 2 in the Dragon's 25 dungeon, and I'll fast forward to the dragon in just a few seconds, but I want to show you a few awesome things here, okay? So these Shatterbones, when they do their AoE A3 ability, they actually got froze, and it really saved my run last time. So this dude has an AoE ability, gives him a chance to be frozen, and honestly, a lot of people start getting frozen. It just helps out so much. You could throw in champions like a Shock in here, who I believe boosts allies' turn meters whenever an ally who's frozen takes a turn, gonna have huge benefits. I have this team, a similar team set up to run, actually, it's basically the same team set up to run Spiders 24, 20, I think 24 as well. And a Shock works amazing, but I'm not using him there because honestly, a Shock and Mordecai can basically solo that. But here, you can see all the control. We have the Shatterbones, who are a big threat here. Frozen, this one's provoked. Without Tatura in a taunting set, this dude would never be provoked, right? I have nobody else who can do AoE provoke. Tatura is the only person who can do that. So if you've been farming the Ice Golem it's been having some pretty good rewards as far as like the sidebar rewards. If you've been farming Ice Golem, hopefully you got a decent taunting set at least. Like the one I have on him isn't top tier by no means. It's not like the best gear. If I had any other set on him, his stats would be much higher. He has very good base stats, which really lends itself to having even higher total end stats. But overall, let's go ahead and fast forward this. I'm not trying to take this forever to jump to the dragon and see how he performs there. All right, guys, we just now got to the dragon, 5 minutes and 7 seconds. Like I said, this is not a speed run by no means, but the point of this is to give you, I guess, the proof of concept that if you get Tatura and you're a mid-game player working on going through dungeon content, or even if you're somebody without Seer, which is a huge percentage of people, if you throw Tatura in here, you could potentially start bringing in higher damage dealing champions alongside him because he's going to do so good in a taunting set specifically about keeping everybody locked down. There's a big difference between him being in a taunting set with that provoke, having the chance to, well, if he ever counterattacks, reapplying provoke. If you have an ally attack champion alongside Tatura, another chance to apply the provoke. If you have those counterattack accessories, another chance to apply the provoke. So the more attacks you can get Tatura to do, the more chances he's going to provoke more and more people. And it's a pretty big difference between having the provoke set, the taunting set on him versus having the frost plus frostbite. The frost plus frostbite gives him a very good chance to freeze, about a 20% extra chance to freeze, I do believe. A little bit more depending on how the Fearsome Presence Mastery factors into all that. But I think the overall chance to control people and then have that sustained control, because having that provoke force them to use their A1 ability, going into a freeze is so good. They're essentially locked out for 2 turns, and it really opens your team up to get some heals off, get some extra heals off, do some more decreased defense, just opens you up to do a lot more different things with your team to really, I guess, progress through this content easier. But this is a 7-minute run, okay? So take it for what it is. But these people are all fairly squishy. No real massive support champion. I mean, Doom Priest heals are good, but they're not amazing, right? There's definitely a lot better healers out there, and there's a lot better damage dealers. Bring in a Venus, decrease defense and weaken. Lydia, decrease defense and weaken. Bring in a champion who has really good AoE damage against force affinity. Maybe we could bring in a Leorius. We could bring in Shagur if we had him, Shagur, the dude I did a video on a few days ago. But there's a lot of different options basically, right? To speed this run up for you. Obviously you can do the Seer strategy, but with that strategy, you don't really need this guy, okay? You don't need this guy to do this if you have Seer already. This guy's gonna be really good for mid-game progression, but he also has the same viability when it comes to Doom Tower. I'll jump into Doom Tower in just a few seconds, but jumping here to a Spider Sage 25 team, and honestly, you can do Spider Sage 24. He's going to be neutral affinity there, so just keep that in mind as you're progressing through it. Spider Stage 25 is going to lend itself to be a little bit easier for Tatura to be the focused tank, assuming you don't have any other Spirit affinity champions. Now, I went ahead and built out a team for this. The only presets here are, I turned off the A2 and A3 of Padma just so she uses her A1. I don't want her to even use these. It's just a decreased attack on the A1. Tatura, no changes. Seal the Drakes. If I was typically running this like an actual team, I would want Seal the Drakes to use that. But since we're focusing on Tatura's provoke plus his freeze, If Silva Drakes is doing her stun as well, it's going to be useless. I do, however, want her decreased speed plus the chance of decreasing the turn meter. However, Silva Drakes is sitting at 90 accuracy right now. So let me go in there real quick and see if I can make her accuracy a level where she's actually going to be usable. Okay, so real quick, let's go down to Silva Drakes while we're in this video and pick up some accuracy from a chest plate. Honestly, this is just going to show you how, well, you probably want to gear your champions correctly if you're going to do this, but for this particular case, I don't really care if she's geared or not. I don't think she has an accuracy banner on. I just want her to have 200 plus accuracy. She's going to be good to go. I'd prefer if she had higher speed, but hey, doesn't really matter, okay? So basically this gear is leftover at best. Let's go ahead and throw this on auto. Spider stage 25 now. We could bring a Chalk. He's going to have even better crowd control. We could turn on Silva Drake's A2 ability. Not worried about that. I only want the decreased speed, the extra decreased turn meter. I want the decreased turn meter from Cold Heart. Nothing else really matters. Honestly, you could bring Visix instead of Cold Heart for an extra decreased turn meter on the A1, more consistent, plus some good provoke. So you could build a really different team around this. But the main thing I want to show is how good Tatura is, provoking everybody, having them attack him, being weak affinity, and getting the freezes on the enemy. So it all just works out very, very well together. The decreased attack is very, very important from Padma. Whether you use Padma, whether you use Duke, whether you want to try for Stag Knight, which has the issue is he's also weak affinity, but whoever you use, it works out so good, and you really, really need the decreased attack because Tatura is going to take a beating, okay? These champions are attacking him are strong affinity, so they have a chance to do a strong hit, which strong hits coupled with no decreased attack, just bad news, okay? So don't take him in here without having somebody with a decreased attack, unless Tatura is like insane as far as the defense goes, but really it's just safest. Throw some AoE decreased attack in here and you're going to be good to go. The more turn meter reduction you have, the more likelihood that this will only take one go around, so the spider will never get a turn to eat the allies. And if your Cold Heart's fast enough, then you're going to be good to go. Here, I may be just lucky enough to get a solid spider run out of this, 1 minute and 30 seconds. We're not running on, I think we're running just 60 FPS. So if I boosted it to unlimited frames, it'd be even faster, maybe even 1 minute 15 or possibly even lower. But either way, this worked out very smoothly. Tatura took all the damage, took all the focus. Not a fast team by any means, but if you're struggling getting through this, you don't have a good tank, Tatura is an amazing Spider Stage 25 tank. And honestly, depending on what stage you do, he could work on even lower stages. So if you're stuck, wherever it is, throw him in there. He could tank it very, very well. But obviously, keep in mind the affinity, because if he's strong affinity and you bring in somebody who's weak affinity, anytime that perfect veil comes up, they're going to be focused on being attacked, okay? So keep all that in mind. Turn meter reduction, decrease attack, all that kind of stuff is very important. But Doom Tower, same thing exactly here, okay? The video is getting pretty long now at this point, but jump into Doom Tower. I'll go into the recently used. Tatura, Sil, Padma. It doesn't really matter who we use here. He does have the Doom Tower aura, which is so, so good. But here, this is AoE. Ideally, he'll be provoking people. Boom, got some provokes off. Unfortunately, we got the provokes on the people who also had the stun, okay? We got the freeze on Yannicka, freeze on Ithos. Let's see if we get any other freezes going off, but both our allies are veiled. Padma's just broke. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier. If, depending on the speeds of the allies and Tatura, the perfect veils can come off pretty often, and it kind of sucks when they break the perfect veil and they start being focused when your whole goal with him or your main goal with him is to keep those perfect veils up or just keep him as the focus of attention, right? You want those freezes going up as frequently as possible. Ithos is frozen. Very, very helpful with Doom Tower, especially I think with the taunting set. I mean, Doom Tower, the biggest thing is having good CC for the waves. And if you can have a champion who's freezing and provoking and play some very good sustainable buffs, really you can't beat that. So whatever you guys decide, hopefully this opens you up to maybe some different builds for Tatura and shows you that he's more beneficial outside of areas other than just the Hydra and niche areas within the Doom Tower. So he has a lot of different builds you can use. A lot of utility, a lot of viability, variability, whatever you want to call it, but definitely a champion who I will be going for. Hopefully you're going for as well. Either way, guys, best of luck, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.